Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are diving straight into the fascinating invisible forces that taxes exert on our economy. We often think of taxation simply as a way for governments to pay for things, just a straightforward transfer of dollars from our pockets to the state. But underneath the surface, it's so much more dynamic than that. Taxes actively reshape human behavior. They don't just move money around, they actually alter the fundamental fabric of how buyers and sellers interact.
Picture this. You're watching the local news, and the anchor reports that the state budget is facing a massive $200 million deficit. The state currently collects exactly $100 million from a 5% sales tax. You might think, well, the solution is obvious, right? Just triple the tax to 15%. It seems like simple math. Triple the tax to get triple the money, and boom, you raise $300 million and fix the problem entirely. Well, today, we are going to bust that myth wide open.
To figure out exactly why that math falls flat, we'll quickly run through our agenda. 1. The hidden costs of taxes. 2. Winners, losers, and surplus. 3. What is deadweight loss? 4. How elasticity changes everything. And finally, 5. The Laffer curve paradox.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the hidden costs of taxes. Let's look at what a tax actually does out in the real world. When the government taxes a good, it isn't just taking a slice of the pie. It is physically driving a wedge right into the market. This means the price buyers end up paying gets pushed higher, but the actual money the sellers get to keep is pushed lower. While we easily see taxes raising money for governments, the invisible consequence is that this wedge makes the good more expensive to buy and less profitable to produce. And because of that, the total quantity of goods sold actually declines. To properly measure this decline and see exactly how much damage is being done, let's move to Section 2, winners, losers, and surplus.
Economists measure market happiness using a concept called surplus. Consumer surplus is basically that awesome feeling of getting a great deal. It's the amount you are willing to pay for something minus what you actually paid. Producer surplus is the seller's equivalent. It's the price they sold it for minus what it cost them to make it. And this brilliantly illustrates our baseline. In a world without taxes, the overall economic well-being, known as total surplus, is simply the sum of consumer and producer surplus, and it's absolutely maximized when the market is at equilibrium. But look at what happens when we throw a tax into the mix. When we compare welfare without a tax to welfare with a tax, the real damage reveals itself entirely. Because the buyers are now paying more and the sellers are receiving less, both consumer and producer surplus shrink. And remember that wedge we talked about? Because the total quantity of goods sold falls, the entire market literally shrinks in size. This shrinkage brings us to the main villain of our economic story, Section 3. What is deadweight loss? So deadweight loss is the fall in total surplus that happens when a tax distorts an efficient market. Here is the absolute kicker. When a tax is applied, the financial hit taken by both buyers and sellers is actually bigger than the revenue the government collects. Value doesn't just safely transfer to the state. A portion of it literally vanishes into thin air. Why does it vanish? Because the tax prevents buyers and sellers from realizing gains from trade. Think about it like this. Imagine you value a service at $100, and a seller can provide it for $90. That is a mutually beneficial trade. But if the government slaps a $20 tax on it, that trade just becomes impossible. The deadweight loss is the exact surplus that is permanently lost to society because those beneficial, unseen trades simply never happen. Let's ground this with some hard numbers to really lock it in. Imagine a perfectly untaxed market. You've got $10,000 in consumer surplus and $10,000 in producer surplus, giving us a beautiful, maximized total surplus of $20,000. Now, watch what happens when we drop a $200 per unit tax into this market. Consumer and producer surplus get absolutely crushed, falling to just $2,500 each. Yes, the government collects $10,000 in tax revenue, but look at the bottom line. The total surplus in the economy, it's now only $15,000. That means $5,000 of economic value is just gone. While $10,000 successfully went to the government to build roads or fund programs, a massive $5,000 of pure value was completely wiped out as deadweight loss. Now, this $5,000 penalty isn't just a fixed rule for every single market. It actually shifts wildly based on our next topic, Section 4, how elasticity changes everything. Elasticity is really just an economist's fancy word for flexibility. How easily can buyers and sellers change their behavior when a tax hits? If a market is highly inelastic, meaning behavior is rigid, like maybe it's for a life-saving medication people absolutely must buy, the deadweight loss is actually smaller because people just bite the bullet and keep trading. But if a market is elastic, meaning people are flexible, the deadweight loss is much, much larger.
Let's see how this plays out in real market dynamics. If buyers can easily just walk away from a taxed product and buy something else, or if sellers can easily pack up and stop producing it, the tax creates a massive distortion. The greater the flexibility of the buyers and sellers, the larger the ultimate deadweight loss. People simply choose to avoid the tax by not participating in the market at all, destroying more and more of those unseen trades.
Which perfectly sets the stage for our climax, Section 5, the Laffer curve paradox. Let's explore what happens when governments ignore this flexibility and just push taxes higher and higher.
We can build this out step by step. First, when a government places a very small tax on a good, it raises a small amount of revenue and creates a very small deadweight loss. Simple enough. Second, as they increase the size of the tax, they do collect more revenue, but that deadweight loss grows even faster. And finally, step 3. If they impose a massive tax, it reduces the size of the market so severely that almost all trading stops. At this massive level, the tax actually raises very little revenue while creating a colossal deadweight loss.
This wild paradox, where increasing the tax rate eventually causes total tax revenue to plummet, is famously known as the Laffer curve. It visually proves that you cannot simply multiply tax rates and expect a straight-line jump in government funds. Why? Because human beings will always alter their behavior to avoid the tax.
And we see this theoretical curve debated and analyzed in real-world policy all the time. For example, back in 2012, a panel of economic experts neutrally evaluating the impact of tax rates noted that cutting federal income taxes could theoretically lead to higher national income down the road. This is precisely because lowering the rate reduces that deadweight loss, allowing a lot more economic activity and those unseen trades to finally flourish.
To wrap up this explainer, we really need to remember the complete picture of what we've learned. Yes, taxes are absolutely necessary to transfer resources to the government for public use. But they are incredibly costly. They actively distort market incentives. They drive a wedge between buyers and sellers, causing deadweight loss by permanently destroying mutually beneficial trades. Ultimately, the way resources are allocated in society becomes inherently less efficient. So, thinking back to our opening myth about the local news anchor, we now know for sure that simply tripling a sales tax from 5% to 15% will not magically triple the revenue. Actually, scratch that. It might destroy the very trades needed to generate that revenue in the first place. Which leaves us with a pretty massive question to ponder. If we know high taxes shrink markets, and we live in an economy where some marginal tax rates push 40%, how much invisible economic value is quietly vanishing around us right this very second? Keep that question in mind the next time you hear a debate about taxes, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.